Melody Jackson was a quiet girl who had just moved to a new town. She was 14 years old, and everything around her felt different and strange. She and her mother had left their home in Atlanta to start fresh in a small town in Missouri. The town was mostly white, and Melody was one of the very few black students in the school. She was nervous about going to a new school where nobody knew her. She wanted to fit in but wasn't sure how. On her first day at the new middle school, Melody woke up early. Her mother helped her get ready, making sure she looked neat in her school uniform. They talked about what the day might be like, but Melody could tell her mother was just as worried as she was. When they arrived, the school seemed big and busy. Kids were everywhere, laughing and chatting in groups. Melody walked quietly, holding her books tightly. Her first class was music, which she liked a lot. Melody loved music because it made her feel calm and happy even when things were hard. At home in Atlanta, she used to play the piano every day. Her grandfather had taught her many songs, especially gospel and jazz music. She kept those lessons in her heart like a secret treasure. The music classroom was bright and filled with musical instruments. Melody noticed the piano in the corner, shiny and waiting. She felt a little hopeful. But the teacher, Mr. Whitaker, was not very welcoming. He was an older man with a stern face and cold eyes. As Melody entered the room, she noticed he didn't smile or greet her like he did with other students. It felt like he was already judging her before she even spoke. The other students glanced at Melody. Some whispered quietly, and a few looked surprised to see her. She sat down quietly at an empty desk, trying not to draw attention. She wanted to be invisible, at least at first. She could feel the weight of their silent looks, some curious, some doubtful. Mr. Whitaker began the class with his usual strict voice. He talked about notes, rhythms, and scales. Melody listened carefully, but the teacher rarely asked her any questions. When other students tried to play the piano, he was patient, and sometimes even praised them. But whenever Melody looked at him, his face was blank, almost cold. She felt like she had to prove something she wasn't even sure about. Days passed, and Melody continued to go to school, feeling more and more like an outsider. She missed her friends from Atlanta. She missed the warmth of her grandfather's smile when he listened to her play. At lunch, she sat alone, reading a book or quietly eating her food. Sometimes a student would ask her a question, but mostly she was ignored. Despite the loneliness, Melody kept practicing in her mind. She played imaginary songs on invisible keys when she walked down the hallways. Music was her secret strength. It reminded her of home and hope. One afternoon, as she was packing her bag, a girl from class came over. Her name was Emily. Emily was friendly and smiled warmly. She asked Melody if she wanted to join a small group of students who liked music. Melody hesitated but nodded. For the first time, she felt a little welcome. However, not everyone was kind. Mr. Whitaker seemed to watch Melody more closely now. Sometimes, when she played softly during class or hummed a tune, he frowned. It was as if he didn't believe she was serious about music. Melody wondered if it was because of the color of her skin or the way she spoke. One day, Mr. Whitaker made a comment that hurt her deeply. While talking about the piano, he said, "Not everyone has a natural rhythm. Some people just aren't cut out for music." The class laughed quietly, and Melody felt a sting in her chest. She wanted to say something, but she stayed silent. After class, she went to the piano and touched the keys gently. Her fingers remembered the songs her grandfather taught her. She wished she could show everyone how much she loved music. But she was afraid. Afraid of being mocked. Afraid of not being good enough. That night, Melody told her mother about the teacher and the classmates. Her mother held her close and said, "You have a gift, Melody. Don't let anyone make you feel less because of who you are. Your music is your voice." Melody wanted to believe her mother, but the fear inside her was strong. She wondered if she could find the courage to play in front of people who didn't want her there. The school felt like a cold place where she had to hide her light. Days turned into weeks. Melody kept going to music class, keeping her head down. But inside, she dreamed of the day when she would play the piano in a way that no one could ignore. She practiced every night in her mind, imagining the music filling the room, soft and powerful. She began to notice small things. Sometimes, when Mr. Whitaker wasn't looking, she caught a glimpse of surprise on his face when another student praised her quietly, or when a classmate asked her about the songs she hummed. Slowly, a new feeling started to grow. Maybe she wasn't invisible after all. Still, the classroom was a place full of tension. The other students whispered behind her back. Some acted like they didn't want her there. Melody learned to be careful, to smile politely but keep her distance. She didn't want to make trouble. One rainy afternoon, Melody sat by the window during music class, watching the drops fall. She thought about her grandfather, who had passed away a year ago. He had always believed in her. He had told her, "Music comes from your soul, and it can break down any wall." Melody closed her eyes and imagined the piano keys under her fingers, the warm sound filling the air. She made a promise to herself. No matter what happened in school, she would never stop playing. She would find a way to share her music, even if it meant facing Mr. Whitaker's cold eyes and the classroom full of silent judgment. The first part of her story was just beginning. Melody Jackson, the quiet girl from Atlanta, had a secret talent and a brave heart. Even if no one else saw it yet, she knew deep inside that music would change everything for her. After a few weeks at the new school, Melody Jackson was still trying to find her place. She had kept her love for music quiet, afraid of what others might think or say. But the music class was becoming more difficult for her to ignore. The teacher, Mr. Whitaker, seemed to watch her carefully. There was a tension in the room whenever she entered. The other students whispered and sometimes stared, making her feel even more alone. One day, Mr. Whitaker announced something that made the entire class nervous. "We will all take turns playing the piano," he said sharply. "Each student will try to play a piece I assign. This is to see who has talent and who needs more practice." His eyes scanned the room and landed on Melody last. She could feel his gaze. There was something cold and challenging in it, as if he didn't expect her to succeed. The room buzzed quietly as students murmured to each other. Melody's heart beat faster. She wanted to disappear. The piano, which had once been a place of comfort, now seemed like a stage for embarrassment. Mr. Whitaker said, "Melody, you'll be last." His voice held a hint of mockery. The students laughed softly as if they were waiting for a show. Melody sat frozen, unsure what to do. She remembered her mother's words about her gift, but the fear in her chest was strong. The thought of playing wrong, of making mistakes in front of everyone, was terrifying. The whispers grew louder in her ears. Can she even play? Probably not. Why would the teacher pick her last? This is going to be funny. When it was finally her turn, Melody stood up slowly. Her legs felt heavy, and her hands trembled. The class was silent, all eyes on her. Mr. Whitaker smirked, clearly expecting her to fail. He handed her a sheet of music. It was a simple beginner's piece, something she could play easily. But it felt like a trap. Melody sat at the piano, staring at the notes. She took a deep breath and placed her fingers on the keys. For a moment, everything was still. The room held its breath. Then, instead of playing the simple song Mr. Whitaker gave her, Melody closed her eyes. She began to play a melody that flowed from her heart, one she had learned from her grandfather. It was a jazz piece, full of life and emotion, complex and beautiful. The notes filled the room. The students and teacher listened, stunned. This was not what they expected. The music was alive, powerful, and full of feeling. Melody's fingers moved swiftly and confidently, telling a story without words. Her heart poured out through the music, and the room was silent, caught in the moment. Mr. Whitaker's smirk disappeared. His face showed shock and confusion. He could not believe what he was hearing. The students, too, were speechless. No one applauded immediately. It was like the music had stopped their breath. When Melody finished, she quietly stood up and returned to her seat. She didn't look at anyone. The fear inside her was still there, but now it was mixed with a strange new feeling: pride. She had shown her true talent, even when she was afraid. After class, whispers spread quickly. Some students approached her with questions, curious about the music she played. Others looked at her differently, with respect instead of doubt. Even Mr. Whitaker seemed unsure how to react. That day, Melody felt a shift. She realized that hiding her music was not the answer. Her gift was stronger than the fear and the judgment, but she also knew the road ahead would not be easy. Mr. Whitaker had forced her to play, not to support her, but to mock her. Yet she had turned his cruelty into a moment of triumph. Melody talked to her mother that evening. She told her about the day, about the fear and the music. Her mother smiled proudly and said, "You are stronger than you know, Melody. Never stop playing." From that day on, Melody began to practice more openly, though still carefully. She noticed small changes around her. Some classmates began to smile at her, and a few even asked to hear her play again. But the tension with Mr. Whitaker remained. He never praised her, but sometimes, when no one was watching, she caught him listening quietly to the notes she played. Melodies. Music was becoming a language she used to express herself. It was her way to speak when words failed. The classroom, once a place of fear, was slowly changing. She was no longer just the quiet new girl. She was someone with a story told through the piano. Yet she knew she had to be careful. Not everyone was ready to accept her talent, and the whispers of doubt still lingered. But Melody was determined. She had found her voice, and she was ready to use it, no matter what. The story of the day Mr. Whitaker forced her to play would stay with Melody forever. It was a moment when fear and courage met, and courage won. It was the start of a journey to show the world who she really was: an artist, a musician, and a young girl who refused to be silenced. The moment Melody Jackson sat down at the piano and began to play that day in music class changed everything. The music that poured out of her fingers was not the simple piece the teacher had assigned. Instead, it was a powerful, beautiful jazz improvisation she had learned from her grandfather. The notes flowed freely and confidently, telling a story of hope, pain, and courage. The classroom, once filled with whispers and laughter, meant to mock her, became silent and still as every ear tuned in to her music. At first, no one moved. Even Mr. Whitaker, the strict music teacher who had forced her to play that day expecting to embarrass her, sat frozen with wide eyes. His usual smirk was gone. The surprise on his face was clear. He did not expect to hear such talent coming from Melody. The other students stared, amazed. The atmosphere in the room shifted. Instead of whispers and snickers, there was a strange, quiet awe. It was as if the music had stopped time for a few moments. Melody closed her eyes as she played, focusing only on the music. Her fingers danced on the keys with grace and confidence. She felt her grandfather's presence with her. The lessons he had taught, the stories he had told about music being a language of the soul. Every note was a part of her story, her pain, and her dreams. When the last note faded into silence, Melody opened her eyes. She was still nervous but held her head high. The room remained quiet for a few seconds. Then, a student in the back finally whispered, "Wow!" Another student's eyes shone with surprise. Even Mr. Whitaker was speechless, unable to find a word to say. No one clapped at first. It was not a performance they had expected, so they were unsure how to react. But slowly some students began to smile and nod, impressed by what they had just heard. For Melody, that silence was the loudest applause she could have hoped for. She quietly returned to her seat, not daring to look at anyone. Inside, her heart was pounding, but she felt proud. She had turned a moment meant to humiliate her into a triumph. She had shown the class and her teacher a side of herself they had never seen. After class, whispers spread quickly through the school halls. Students who had ignored her before now approached her, wanting to know more about the music she played. Some asked if she could teach them or play for them again. This was new for Melody, who had spent weeks feeling invisible. Mr. Whitaker, however, was different. He did not praise her or invite her to perform again. Instead, he remained silent and distant, watching her carefully but not speaking. Melody wasn't sure if he was angry, confused, or maybe even a little proud deep inside. His usual coldness did not disappear, but there was a flicker of something new in his eyes. That night, Melody could hardly sleep. Her mind replayed the moment she played the piano, the surprise on everyone's faces, and the strange mix of fear and joy inside her. She thought about her grandfather, who had always believed in her music. She wished he could have been there to hear her play. The next morning at school, things felt different. Some students greeted her with smiles. A few stopped to say hello or ask about her music. Melody felt a small spark of hope. Maybe she could belong here after all. During music class, Mr. Whitaker continued to teach, but his tone was less sharp. When Melody played softly during practice, he sometimes listened quietly when she hummed a tune, though he never said a word about it. Melody knew she had earned his attention, even if he did not admit it. Outside school, Melody practiced the piano every day. Her mother noticed a change in her: more confidence, a brighter smile, and a growing passion. She encouraged Melody to believe in herself, reminding her that talent was a gift meant to be shared, no matter who tried to bring her down. Word of Melody's talent slowly spread beyond the classroom. A music teacher from a nearby school heard about the girl who could play jazz so beautifully. She reached out to Melody's mother, offering support and asking if Melody would like to perform. At a local event, Melody was nervous but excited. This was a chance to share her music with more people. As the weeks went by, Melody faced new challenges. Some students still whispered or ignored her. Mr. Whitaker's cold attitude made her unsure if she truly belonged in the music world at school. But the music inside her grew louder than the doubts around her. She knew her gift was stronger than fear. One day after class, Mr. Whitaker called Melody over quietly. His voice was softer than usual. He asked where she had learned to play like that. Melody answered simply, "At home. My grandfather taught me." Mr. Whitaker nodded slowly, a hint of respect in his eyes. He then told her about the school's upcoming music showcase and asked if she wanted to perform. Melody hesitated. She remembered the times he had mocked her or ignored her. Could she trust him now? Could she perform in front of everyone? Her mother encouraged her to say yes. "This is your moment," she said. "Don't let fear stop you. Your music is your voice, and it deserves to be heard." Melody agreed. She began preparing a special piece for the showcase, something that would tell her story, her struggles, and her hope through the piano. As the day of the music showcase approached, Melody's nerves grew. She practiced every day, sometimes late into the night. Her fingers moved over the keys with growing confidence, but her heart still fluttered with fear. What if someone laughed again? What if Mr. Whitaker was just pretending? The night before the showcase, Melody dreamed of her grandfather. In her dream, he sat beside her, smiling and playing the piano with her. He told her, "Play from your heart, and you will never be alone." When the big day arrived, Melody walked into the auditorium. The room was filled with students, parents, and teachers. The spotlight shone on the stage where the piano waited. Her heart pounded, but she took a deep breath and stepped forward. This time, when she was introduced, it was with respect. Mr. Whitaker announced her name clearly without any hint of mockery. The audience was quiet and waiting. Melody sat at the piano, closed her eyes, and began to play. The music was soft at first, then grew stronger and fuller. She poured all her feelings into the notes, the fear, the hope, the pain, and the courage. The room was filled with the sound of her heart beating through the piano. The audience listened, captivated. Some closed their eyes, feeling the emotions in the music. Others smiled, moved by the beauty and strength of Melody's playing. When she finished, the crowd erupted into applause. People stood and clapped, some even cheering. Melody smiled, tears in her eyes. She had done it. She had faced her fears and shared her gift. After the performance, many parents and teachers approached her mother to praise Melody's talent. Some offered scholarships and opportunities for her to study music further. Melody felt a new world opening up before her. Mr. Whitaker watched quietly from the side. Later he approached Melody and said softly, "I was wrong about you. You have a rare gift." It was not a dramatic apology, but it was honest and sincere. Melody didn't forget the pain of the past, but she chose to focus on the future. Her music had changed everything, not just for her, but for the people around her. She had shown that talent and courage could break down walls of prejudice and fear. From that day on, Melody continued to play the piano with passion and pride. She became a symbol of hope and strength for others who felt different or alone. Her story was a reminder that sometimes the hardest moments lead to the most beautiful triumphs. After her stunning performance at the school music showcase, Melody Jackson's life began to change in many ways. The applause and recognition she had received that night opened new doors, but it also brought new challenges and opportunities she hadn't expected. The story of the quiet black girl who played the piano with soul and power spread quickly throughout the school, and even into the town. People started to see Melody not just as the new girl, or the girl who was different, but as a talented musician with a bright future. For Melody, the music was still everything. It was the part of her that gave her strength when life felt hard. But with the growing attention, she realized she needed to learn more and work harder. The piano was not just a hobby anymore, it was becoming a part of who she was. Her mother noticed this change too. She saw the fire in her daughter's eyes and knew that Melody's dreams were growing bigger. After the showcase, Melody was invited to join the school's advanced music program. This was a special group for students who showed exceptional talent and wanted to study music more seriously. Joining this group was a big step for Melody. It meant she would be learning new things, practicing more, and sometimes even performing in bigger events outside school. Melody felt nervous but excited. She remembered the days when she sat alone in the lunchroom, feeling invisible. Now, she was part of something important. Her classmates who had once ignored her began to treat her with respect, some even asking for her help with music assignments. She was no longer just the quiet new girl. She was Melody, the pianist. In the advanced music program, Melody met other students who shared her passion for music. Some were already skilled in classical music, others loved jazz or pop. For the first time, Melody felt like she belonged in a group. They practiced together, shared ideas, and inspired each other. This was a new experience, one that helped Melody grow not just as a musician but as a person. But with new opportunities came new pressures. Melody had to balance schoolwork, practice, and her family responsibilities. Her mother worked hard to support them, and Melody didn't want to add to her worries. Sometimes she felt overwhelmed, tired, and unsure if she could handle it all. But every time she sat at the piano, the music gave her the energy to keep going. One afternoon, while practicing a difficult classical piece for an upcoming recital, Melody's fingers stumbled on a tricky passage. She felt frustrated and almost ready to give up. But then she remembered her grandfather's words. Music comes from your soul, and your soul is stronger than any mistake. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and started over. This time she played slowly and carefully, letting the music flow naturally. Gradually, her confidence returned, and the piece began to sound beautiful again. This moment taught her something important, not just about music, but about life. Mistakes were part of the journey, and courage was about continuing even when things got hard. Melody's hard work paid off. She was selected to represent her school in a regional music competition. This was a big honor and also a challenge. The competition was open to students from many schools, and the level of talent was very high. Melody knew she had to prepare well to succeed. She practiced every day, often late into the night. She chose a special piece to perform, one that combined classical music with the jazz style she loved. This mix was unique and showed her creativity. Her fingers moved faster and more confidently over the keys. The piano was no longer just an instrument. It was a part of her voice. The day of the competition arrived. Melody's nerves were strong. She thought about the first time Mr. Whitaker had forced her to play, hoping to mock her. Now she was about to perform on a big stage with hundreds of people watching. The thought was scary, but she felt ready. When it was her turn, Melody walked onto the stage and sat at the piano. The lights were bright, and the audience was quiet, waiting. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, and began to play. The music filled the room, soft and gentle at first, then growing stronger and more passionate. The judges listened carefully. Melody's performance was different from the others. It told a story of struggle and hope. She played with feeling, not just skill. The music was her heart speaking. When she finished, the applause was loud and warm. Melody smiled, feeling proud and grateful. Though she did not win first place, Melody received a special award for creativity and expression. This was a huge encouragement. It showed her that music was not just about being perfect, but about being real and true to herself. Back at school, her success at the competition made her even more confident. Mr. Whitaker, who had watched her perform on a video shared by a classmate, began to treat her differently. He started to offer advice and even asked her to help some younger students with piano lessons. While he never apologized for his earlier behavior, his respect for Melody was clear. Melody's story began to inspire others at school and in the community. Teachers and students saw her not just as a musician, but as someone who had overcome fear and prejudice. Local newspapers wrote about her talent and courage, and invitations to perform at community events started to arrive. Her mother was proud but also careful to remind Melody to stay grounded. "Talent is a gift, but kindness and hard work are what keep it alive," she said. Melody listened and tried to balance her growing fame with the values her family had taught her. Despite all the attention, Melody never forgot the challenges she had faced. She remembered the loneliness, the whispers, and the cold eyes of Mr. Whitaker when she first arrived. Those memories kept her humble and determined to help others who felt left out or judged. One day, a new student joined the school. She was shy and quiet, much like Melody had been. Some students started to whisper and make fun of her. Melody saw the fear and sadness in the girl's eyes. She remembered how it felt to be new and different. Without hesitation, Melody approached the girl and introduced herself. She offered to show her around and invited her to join the advanced music program. The girl smiled shyly and accepted. This small act of kindness made a big difference. The girl began to feel welcome and started to open up through music. Melody realized that her journey was not just about her success, but also about lifting others up. Music had given her a voice, and now she wanted to use that voice to support and encourage others. As the school year went on, Melody continued to grow. She took part in many performances, helped younger students, and worked hard in her classes. Her friendship with Emily, the girl who had first invited her to the music group, grew stronger. Together, they dreamed of making music their future. Home, Melody and her mother talked often about what lay ahead. College was on the horizon, and Melody dreamed of attending a music school where she could learn even more and become a professional pianist. Her mother promised to support her every step of the way. Though the road was still full of challenges, Melody felt ready. She had faced fear, prejudice, and doubt, but she had also found courage, talent, and friendship. Music had changed her life, and she was determined to keep playing, no matter what. The story of the girl who was once forced to play the piano to be mocked had become a story of triumph and hope. Melody Jackson was no longer just a quiet, new girl. She was a shining example of what courage and passion could achieve. Her journey was far from over, but she knew one thing for sure. Music would always be her strength, her voice, and her way to make the world a better place. Melody Jackson's journey had been full of ups and downs. From the moment she was forced by her teacher to play the piano in front of the class to be mocked, to the moment she stood on stage at the school music showcase, her life had changed in ways she never imagined. Now, in this final part of her story, everything she had worked for started to come together, but also brought new challenges and choices that would shape her future. After her success at the regional competition and the growing recognition at school and in her community, Melody realized that her music had a power she never fully understood before. It wasn't just about playing beautiful notes on the piano. It was about touching people's hearts and inspiring them. She saw how her story had inspired others, especially those who felt left out or doubted because of who they were. With this new understanding, Melody began to think bigger. She dreamed of going to a special music school, a place where she could learn from the best teachers, meet other talented musicians, and grow even more. But her family did not have a lot of money, and Melody knew that pursuing such dreams would be difficult. Her mother was her biggest supporter. She worked extra hours to save money and helped Melody apply for scholarships and music programs. Melody also worked hard to keep her grades up because she knew that getting into a good school required more than just talent. She needed discipline and determination. At school, Melody's life was busy. She practiced the piano for hours every day, helped younger students, and balanced her homework and exams. Sometimes it was exhausting. There were moments when she felt like giving up or that the pressure was too much. But every time she felt this way, she remembered the first day Mr. Whitaker had forced her to play, expecting to embarrass her. Instead, she had surprised everyone with her talent. That memory gave her strength. As senior year approached, Melody prepared for her final exams and auditions for music schools. She worked with a new music teacher, Mrs. Harris, who believed in her talent and pushed her to reach her full potential. Mrs. Harris taught Melody advanced techniques and helped her understand the emotional depth of music. She told Melody, "Music is not just about playing the right notes. It's about telling a story, sharing your soul." Melody practiced a special piece for her auditions, a mix of classical and jazz, representing both her training and her heart. She spent weeks perfecting every note, making sure her performance would be unforgettable. One day, Melody received an invitation to perform at a community concert organized to celebrate young talents from different backgrounds. This was an important event. It was not just a performance but a chance to show her community that talent can come from anyone, no matter their background or struggles. The night of the concert, Melody felt nervous but ready. She stood backstage, listening to other performers. When her turn came, she walked onto the stage with confidence. The spotlight was bright, and the audience was large, filled with familiar faces from her school and town. She sat at the piano and began to play. The music started softly, then grew stronger and more passionate. Melody's fingers moved over the keys with grace and power, telling her story without words. She played not just for herself but for everyone who had doubted her, for her family who had supported her, and for the little girl she once was, scared and unsure. When the final note faded, the audience erupted in applause. Melody smiled, feeling a deep sense of joy and accomplishment. She had come far from the shy girl hiding in the corner. Her music had become her voice, her strength, and her gift to the world. After the concert, Melody's phone rang. It was a call she had been waiting for, an acceptance letter from the prestigious music school she had applied to. She had earned a scholarship that would cover most of her tuition. Tears filled her eyes as she shared the news with her mother. They hugged tightly, knowing this was the beginning of a new chapter. At the music school, Melody faced new challenges. The environment was competitive, and the students were talented. But Melody was not afraid. She remembered her journey, the struggles, the doubts, and the moments of triumph. She worked harder than ever, learning new styles, composing her own music, and performing in recitals and competitions. Her experiences had taught her important lessons about courage, kindness, and resilience. She made friends from different backgrounds and shared her story with them. She became a mentor to younger students who were just starting their own journeys. Melody's music was no longer just her passion. It was her mission to inspire and uplift others. Years passed, and Melody graduated with honors. She became a professional pianist and music teacher. She traveled to different places, performing and teaching. Her music touched many hearts, and her story inspired countless young people who faced challenges like she once did. But Melody never forgot where she came from. She returned to her hometown often to perform and support local music programs. She worked with schools to create opportunities for students who didn't have access to music education. She wanted every child to know that their dreams were possible, no matter how hard the journey. One day, Melody was invited to speak at a conference about overcoming adversity through art. She told her story, from the day a teacher tried to mock her to the moment she stood on big stages, and how music saved her. Her words moved the audience, reminding them that courage and passion can change lives. Melody's journey showed that talent alone is not enough. It takes determination, support, and the courage to keep going even when others doubt you. Her story was a powerful reminder that sometimes the hardest moments in life lead to the greatest triumphs. Her music continues to inspire, heal, and bring people together. Melody Jackson's life was proof that no matter where you start, with heart and hard work, you can reach your dreams and shine bright.